Gregg Goodrich is a longtime member of DFO. He's been a field trip leader and done workshops about using eBird in the past. So I'm going to exit stage right here, and you'll all be muted during the webinar. But if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on your screen and ask those questions. And then when Gregg is done, I will go through them with you, and we'll make sure we get answers to everybody's questions. Okay, Gregg, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Well, my presentation tonight is going to be strictly off of my phone. So you probably see a little bit of shake there. Now, while I go ahead and start up my screen share with you. So I'll do that here. And that will bring up my phone for you to see. And I will drop over here to Merlin. And there you will see the display. So what you should see now is Merlin display screen, and this is what the app looks like on your phone. So as I said, all this presentation will be done this evening from my iPhone. This application, Merlin, only runs on smartphones and tablets that run the Apple and the Android operating systems. For just a quick overview of what we'll be covering tonight, I'm going to start and just briefly go through the Start Bird ID. You can see here that Merlin has these 4 applications included in its one Merlin application. So those were the items that we'll be covering. And I'll quickly go over these first 2 items, starting Bird ID and Photo ID. And then we'll spend most of our time on Sound ID and Explore Birds. So you may ask, why is this application called Merlin? Well, think of our falcon. He's our, the Merlin falcon is our smallest and fastest falcon. And that pretty much describes this application. It's small and fast. But also think of Merlin the magician and his magical powers. And it seems that Merlin has magical powers, really, to be able to identify birds for us so quickly in these 3 different areas via the 5 descriptions, a photo ID or sound ID. And then Explore Birds is our basically very flexible field guide that we'll go over. Merlin was launched in 2014 with just the Start Bird ID and the Explore Birds features. And then in 2017, they brought out the Photo ID, which is quite fun and very helpful. And then just last year in June, they released the Sound Recording ID to be able to identify a bird from a recording. So we'll go over all these features, and I know a lot of you have probably used Merlin a little bit already, or maybe quite a bit, but hopefully you'll be able to find some tips and tricks here today with this quick 30-minute presentation on all the nice features of Merlin. Take a look here at this very top, just below Merlin, and you see Merlin ID help for 8,500 plus species. Well, there's 10,000 species in the world, so roughly 85% of the species in the world are covered by Merlin. So pretty phenomenal job for Merlin to be able to accomplish that. All of the data and the smarts for Merlin actually come from the eBird database. So all of our eBird checklists that we do, and all of those photos and recordings, and the number of birds that we see of each different species, all of that informs Merlin about what bird you might be seeing at a particular time and location, and what the likelihood of seeing that bird is. So massive coordination between the eBird database that we all use. There's basically 700 million checklists out there in the eBird database that helps inform Merlin. 800,000 members on eBird do these 70 million checklists. So wonderful resource for this Merlin application. So let's, before we start getting into these apps, let's take a look up here in the upper left-hand corner at the menu. So I'm going to click on that menu button, and there's a couple of menus here I want to go over real quick. And one of them is this settings menu right here. And I turn on this move repeated live matches. I turn that on so that when I'm doing a recording, the most recent bird that's been heard by Merlin will pop to the top. And then down here, I like to do my sightings reportings on eBird and not on Merlin. You can do it either way, but if you report with Merlin, it's going to just save them in your personal database and not on the big master database. And so I think you'd probably prefer to have a checklist done that way. I usually start an eBird checklist ahead of Merlin anyway. But if you do see a good bird and you wanted to start your checklist from Merlin, you could do it, and it would use eBird to do that as well. So let's go back. And one other application I'd want to talk about real quickly is bird packs. And when you install Merlin, it will automatically install the pack for the location you're in. That would be our U.S. Rocky Mountains. I've installed the U.S. and Canada Continental because I like to have a full field guide listing for, just like the Sibley guide. I like to have all the birds in the U.S., but you can certainly load other countries as well. So fantastic list of different countries. So if you're going to travel, out of the U.S. or Canada, then I'd highly recommend loading these packs ahead of time. Start studying your birds. And then upper left here, you'll see installed bird packs. So this just tells you what packs are installed. So that's a quick look at the packs. One other thing on the menu is life list. So if you put in your login ID and password here for eBird Mobile, it will automatically sync up all of your live birds with Merlin here. I think you'll see why that can be very helpful. But here, right on this application life list, it shows you all the birds that you've seen, when you first saw that bird, and the date that you saw it, and where you saw it. So a nice thing to have, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. So let's go into these first two apps real quickly, and we'll start with the Start Bird ID. On that, it's going to ask us 5 questions. So you're out in the field and you're birding and you see a little green bird dart into the bush. You don't have a time to really get an ID on it, and it's just completely disappeared. Well, what are the options? Or say you have a family member or friend send you an email about a bird that they saw, and hopefully tell you about the size and where it was. With that limited amount of information and their location, you can get some suggestions from Merlin on what that bird might be. So I'm going to say, use our current location on this little green bird, use today's date, next. Okay, what size was that bird? Well, it was in between a sparrow and a robin, so I've selected that one, and next. And it was olive green, so I'm going to select that color. And what was it doing? Well, it was in the trees and the bushes, so I'll say next. So we've answered the 5 questions, and these are the suggestions from Merlin of what the bird might be. Western wood pewee, green-tailed towhee, western kingbird. So it gives you a fighting chance to identify the bird, or some recommendations for your friend or family member of what the bird might be. So I'm going to click on the upper right-hand corner and go back to the home screen. And now let's talk about photo ID. Photo ID can be really a lot of fun. I know we had a puzzle the other day, and it had a bunch of European and United Kingdom birds on it. And I didn't have much of a clue as to what they were. But I used this application, Photo ID, to take pictures of those birds on the puzzle. And it identified most of them for me amazingly. So that was fun. If you see a bird in a magazine, take a picture of it. They don't identify what the bird is. Merlin might be able to help you get that ID. Of course, you can take a photo in the field if you're close enough to the bird with your phone, and it might be able to ID it. But if you've got a big camera, of course, take the photo with your camera and then bring that photo up on your display screen on your camera and take a photo of it with your phone and use that way to identify it. So lots of ways to use the photo ID. What I'm going to do is just choose a photo here, and we'll go to my albums, and I've got a photo here of a bird that I took in the mountains. What is that bird? It looks sort of like a woodpecker, and but it's got a little yellow top on it. Well, what you want to do on this photo ID is get that bird filled up in the frame around this little black square as best you can, and then just say next. And if you've got a location that you need to put in and a date that bird was seen, do that. I'm going to hit identify, and American three-toed woodpecker. Good job, Merlin. That is exactly what, my photo was of. And you can swipe to the left and see male and female juveniles and other birds. So I think you can see photo ID can be pretty powerful and can give you some good ideas. Here again, these are only suggestions. So you want to make sure you independently verify any bird that's suggested by Merlin, whether it's a recording or a photo, just to independently know for sure that that's what that bird is before you do an eBird report on it. So I'm going to click in the upper right-hand corner and go back to our home screen, and we'll start talking about the sound ID. So on sound ID, we're going to cover 3 different areas. So first of all, in the field, what is the best way for you to get the best possible recording in the field before you even start your recording? So we're going to talk about in the field preparation, and then we're going to do the recording here off of Merlin. And then finally, we're going to talk about saving and uploading your recording. So let's go ahead and I want to show you one thing here first on Merlin, actually on ebird.org. I want you to get a feel for what the kilohertz range is on the bird sounds that you see when a bird sound is being displayed on the monitor of the recording that you're doing. And pitch is a really important thing to understand. This is a golden crown kinglet, and you can see this high pitch right here. It's in the 10 kilohertz range. It goes from 2 to 10. That is our hearing range. And so I'm going to play that just a bit, and you'll hear how high that is, and then the little warble. So those are all up and around the 9 kilohertz range. Now I've got another example here of a very low recording, and this is a Gunnison sage grouse. And you can see here this is called a spectrogram, that it's a very low sound. And notice the pattern and the way that it goes across the screen. So you probably won't be able to hear that real well because of just the limitations of doing this off the phone. But just to get an idea of what the spectrogram looks like for different birds and the kilohertz range that those go into. So let's go back over to the application, and I'll go ahead and hit Start Sound ID. And here you see this big green button that will start your recording. So let's go ahead and start a recording. Well, I'm not going to be able to record. I'm here in the house anyway, so we wouldn't pick up very many birds. But I wanted to explain the screen just real quickly. If you hit the X up here, it will stop and not save your recording. So maybe you're out in the field and you're recording, you're not really getting much, you're just getting a bunch of noise. So you would definitely just go ahead and close that and not save it. But if you're getting a good recording, go ahead and hit this stop button down here, and that will stop and automatically save your recording. So those two features there to make a recording up. Now let's look at sound recordings. This is where all of your recordings are saved in Merlin. So I'm going to click on my sound recording, and I want to go back to Merlin. But before that, I'm going to show you a live video that I did, a video of a recording. So I'm going to bring that up and play it now. The sound is not going to be very loud, but just watch the screen and you can see what it looks like when you're in the field doing a recording. So this is the spectrogram here at the top. And as it hears a bird, it will display it on the screen and pop to the top. The little Say's Phoebe, it's this up and down motion here in the lower range of the spectrogram. You'll see that odd, picked up a house finch. There's a brown-headed cowbird and a collared dove. So this is what your recording will look like in the field as you're picking up bird sounds in Merlin, and you'll see the spectrogram there on the top. So that's just a quick idea of what a recording would actually look like. Now I'm going to pull up one of my recordings. I did one back on 7/18 on the back deck here at the house, and got quite a few birds. So let's take a look at that one real quick. So you can see I got 6 different birds, and let's go over the screen. At the very top, you see the year, the date, and the month, and the day here, and then 5:38 in the morning. And then it was 51 seconds. So over 51 seconds, these birds came up on Merlin. Now, if you look here in the upper right-hand corner, there is a place where you can make changes. You can rename, change your location, change the date on your recording if you need to. So those are all options there. The other option on the screen is to play. So you can play that recording back by hitting the play button. And then a really nice feature I love about this display of your previous recording that you did, you can touch right here on the bird, spotted towhee, and it will bring it up here on the spectrogram with that first song that it heard from the spotted towhee. Then you can compare that by dropping this little arrow down here and playing the spotted towhee song. And sure enough, chip, 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 trill, spotted towhee, that will probably match your recording that you got in the spectrogram up there on the top. So really nice features to drop down and see all the different bird songs possible that you can compare with the bird that Merlin picked up. And also on the screen, you can start a new recording right here directly from the screen. You can explore birds nearby by clicking on this, and then you can report no matches, and that's a good thing. I was out in the field today and was picking up a chip that Merlin couldn't identify. So I stopped the recording, and then I just touched on that, report no matches, and it'll send it up to Merlin, and then they can update the database to get that bird sound in the database. So the last thing I want to go over on this screen is this save share feature right here. So now we're getting into the area where we're going to save this recording. Now, typically we wouldn't do a recording with this many birds on it. We'd try, we wouldn't want to save that up and put it on our checklist. We'd want to have a single bird with some pretty good quality recording on it. And then just a little, if there's a few miscellaneous birds in the background, you can make note of that on your recording. But just for example's sake, I'm going to go ahead and hit this share save feature, and we're going to save this, and I'm going to bring that up and save it to a file. You'll see right here, save to a file. And that's what you want to do, is save your recording to a file. I've created a directory here called the WAV directory, since these are WAV files. And then you just hit save up here in the upper right-hand corner, and you'd be good. Now, you can create a directory right to the left of save. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then when we go to our checklist, we're going to upload it. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like as well. So let me close out of this, and I'm going to go to another screenshot that I've got here. But let me get to my screenshots. Oh, in the photo directory, sorry about that. And go backwards. And here's my screenshot of what it looks like when you're going to upload that recording that we just saved. So when you bring up your checklist in ebird.org, you'll have one of the menu options is to manage your media here across the top. So you click on that manage media, and this whole screen is what you will see when you go into manage media. And here you can see at the very first bird, a gray vireo. I've uploaded already a photo and also a recording of that gray vireo. And I did that by clicking on add media right there. So each one of the birds that you've got on your checklist will show here. And if you've got media to add for them, you just go below that bird, click on the add media button, and then you get this little white dialog box that allows you to upload a photo or choose a file, or either take a photo and a video right there in the field if you wanted, but most time that wouldn't be very good quality off your phone. So we would select choose a file, and then we would go to that same directory where we just saved our recording, and we would just touch on the recording, and it would start uploading that recording to your checklist. And you would see it display up here, uploading the recording, and then you'd say that it's done. You can hit done, and that's it. You've got your recording uploaded to your checklist. So let's go back here and just go back to the app, and I'll go back to the main screen. And notice down here in the lower right-hand corner, you can import. So you can import recordings from other software into Merlin as well if you want to help identify birds. And if you've got a video that you did and it has bird sound on it, you can import that video from your camera reel on your phone, and it will identify the birds for you. So some pretty cool features there to import files. You can also go left here and delete recordings if you decide you don't want them anymore. So let's go back to the main screen on sound. And the lastly, I want to go over this supported birds. So I'm going to touch on that. These are the birds that are currently supported. There's 685 birds that are currently supported in the recording. If you're not sure if your bird is there or not, you can just type it in the search up there and see if your bird is supported by Sound ID. So I think that pretty much covers it for Sound ID. I'm going to show you help here in just a minute on best practices, but let's go ahead and go into the Explore Birds feature down at the bottom here. So Explore Birds. This is a wonderful field guide. Think of this as like your Sibley field guide for all of the United States. And notice across the top here, very important to tell you what your current field guide is in Explore. Right now, I've got US and Canada continental. But boy, this is highly customizable. And in this upper right-hand corner, it's called a filter. So I'm going to be touching on that a good little bit here for just a couple of minutes. If I click on that filter, you'll see that Refine Bird List our options here, either the bird packs or likely birds. You can see that right now I have US and Canada checked, and I'm not showing all of my packs. And so that's what's currently there, and I've hit done. Sure enough, we're US and Canada continental. But if I hit on that refine again and go to show all bird packs and say done, whoa, we've got the list of all those packs that I have installed. Now then, but we can do much finer bird list, checklist here for our field guide, and that is likely birds. So right now you see I've got likely birds, Highlands Ranch today, and sorted by family. So I'll say done on that. And you can see I've got a different list now. It's birds that are most likely here in Highlands Ranch as of today. Notice this little line right here, this vertical line, that is the current date. So you can see that, let me get back to the top here. Here's to the top. This is the months of the year going January through December, and it's a abundance of that bird. So it's got a pretty wide gray line across here. So you can see Canada goose are more abundant than, say, a gadwall, or than, say, a pintail, which even is less abundant, but just starting to show. So these graphs are pretty helpful to tell you what birds are starting to show over the period of the months. And here again, we look up at the top to know what our current field guide that we've got up, and it's likely birds today in Highlands Ranch. But let's filter something different here. Let's say I'm going to Miami today. So I'm going to change that location from Highlands Ranch to Miami. And let's click done and see what happens. A whole new, field guide for us to know what birds are likely in Miami. Here again, any of these, you can just touch on the bird. It brings up all of the male, female, juvenile plumage photos of the birds, a nice write-up of the birds. Across the bottom, you can get the sounds as well as the map distribution of that bird. So complete field guide at your fingertips for likely birds today in Miami. Well, let's say I'm not going to Miami till next month. So let's change the date right here, and let's put that for next month. So I'm going to say specific date. Let's change that to October the 6th and go back and say done. And wow, that changes our field guide significantly and tells us what we would be seeing next month in October the 1st, likely birds in Miami. Well, you'll notice one thing here that say you don't have a lot of time and you'd like to know, well, what are the most likely birds in Miami in a month? So let's change that to most likely instead of the sort order right now is family. So I'll touch on most likely and say done. And there it changes our field guide again. Now blue-gray gnatcatcher is the most likely bird we'd see in Miami on October the 6th. Now notice one thing. You see this little blue circle to the right of all of these birds? Those are live birds. And because we've synced up Merlin with eBird.org, we've got a nice blue checklist there that tells us, oh yeah, you've seen this bird before. It's on your life list. Well, I'm not going to have much time in Miami. I would like to know what birds I haven't seen. Maybe I could get a live bird. Well, we can do that again by going up to the filter, upper right-hand corner. Click on that. Notice this bottom setting right here. Hide birds on my life list. I'll do that and say done. And bam, all those little blue circles are gone. And these are all birds that, would be life birds for me if I was in Miami on October the 6th. Now, notice this one orange-winged parrot right here in the middle doesn't have photographs of this bird. Well, if we click on that that, it will tell us what the problem is. We need a bird pack. You would need to load the Caribbean bird pack to get that bird. So a good indicator that, you can add a little more, another pack to your Merlin and get some nice additional information on that bird if you so desire. So that pretty much covers it for each of the apps. I want to go mention just one thing real quickly in the help. So I'm going to go back here to the home screen, and then upper left-hand corner, you click these three bars and you can get to the menus. And notice right here, help. There's some very good help on Merlin. And right here you see all of the help for just Merlin itself, but there's also excellent articles about Merlin and also eBird. So I'm going to click on those articles. And the articles are grouped in three sections. First, eBird help articles, and then Merlin bird ID help articles. And then right here on the bottom is the Macaulay Library help. Right here is a really good article for you if you're interested in uploading your recordings. It says audio preparation and upload guidelines. So I'm going to click on that, and it has like 9 different points here on how to save your recording, how to do the cleanup on your recording. And 2 really important cleanup features are trimming and volume. It's called normalization. So trim and normalizing is what you want to do on most of your recordings. It'll boost the volume, and eBird recommends a -3 dB on your volume boosting. And if we go to the bottom of this article, it'll tell you what applications you can use to do your cleanup and modifications on your sound recording that you've done. And that can be done with Audacity, with Ocean Audio, and Adobe Audition, those 3 there. These all only run on computers or a Mac, and so cannot run it on a tablet or a smartphone. But if you click on any one of those, like click on Audacity there, it'll give you a step-by-step guide on how to trim, normalize, and clean up your recording before you upload it to your checklist. So very, very helpful features there. And one other thing at the bottom of this help article, notice Merlin Sound ID Best Practices. So I'm going to click on that one. And this very first item that it talks about is the best birding tools you've got are your own eyes and ears. So Merlin can make mistakes, just like birders. We can all make mistakes. But here in red, it says, certainly if you're not confident that Merlin's suggestion is correct, or if you have not considered it independently, don't report it on eBird. Do not report whatever Merlin says without considering it first. So independently verify your bird, and specifically and especially if you have a rare bird and you've got a recording of it, be sure and include that recording on your eBird checklist. So I think that's, one other menu I want to mention is donate. And so if you'd like to help support Cornell, you can do one-time or monthly donations right off of that menu there in Merlin. And then one last thing I will mention is I have here in Safari a screen that I'd like to show you. And this shows you that on your My eBird, up on ebird.org, it keeps track of your audio and photos that you've submitted for all of your birds. So a good place to, keep an eye on your progress and hopefully encourage us to get lots of good recordings and photos uploaded on our checklist so we can make eBird Mobile and Merlin even more powerful than they already are. So I think that pretty much covers it. Sharon, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and I'll I'll probably keep my screen share going, Sharon, just so if there's something we need to refer back to, I can do that. Will that work?
That should work just fine, Greg.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, are there any questions or are we done for the night?
No, I've got a couple of questions here.
Okay.
First of all, one person is asking, are all the birds listed on a recording birds that were accurately identified by Merlin? Like, in other words, I think if you had a recording with multiple birds, does Merlin only identify the ones it's sure of? Is it possible there could be birds on a recording Merlin doesn't identify?
Yes, absolutely. There's only 685 birds that are currently in the database for sound ID. So it cannot pick up every bird in the world by any means yet. And also, it may display a bird that's not correct. I had it said it saw heard a red-headed woodpecker here, in my backyard, and I know that was not the case. So it can make mistakes, just like us birders can. So it's not infallible, but it's still a great tool.
Okay, next question. Why are there times when you're close to a fairly loud bird and Merlin can't hear it?
Yes, it's I think I didn't mention a couple of things, but it is a really good idea to get just as close to the bird as you possibly can. So, one thing to think about is holding your phone up. And let me show you this photo here. This is a photo of me holding my phone, the base of the phone up towards the bird. So you'll get a better recording if you point your mic. And on our phones, our mics are on the bottom. That's where we talk. And so point the bottom of your phone at the bird that you're trying to record, and you'll probably have a better chance of picking it up. Other things to remember is wear quiet clothing, not a rain jacket or some clothing that makes a lot of noise. That's going to be picked up by your phone. Don't move your feet. Ask people to be quiet around you. Also, try to put some barrier between you and noise, or at least get your back to any external noise that is like traffic or people are talking. Try to minimize all that. You want to be in as quiet an environment as possible. Then, if you're in that environment and you're getting a good recording, try to do like a 30-second recording if you can. Merlin will take up to a 10-minute recording if you'd like. And then if you can stop your recording once you've got, at least 30 seconds, and then see if you can get a little closer. The closer you can get to the bird without flushing it, the better your recording is going to be. There's one cool statistic. If you can cut the distances in half between you and a bird, you will double the volume on your recording. So, a helpful thing to remember when you're doing recordings.
Okay, follow-up question to that, because this has happened to me, is what if you're by a stream? Does that really make it difficult for Merlin when there's rushing water?
Yeah, any kind of rushing water is bad, and it's picked up on the recording very loudly. So I've found that if I just back up, no more than 10, 15 feet from the water, and try to get maybe a tree or some obstacle between you and the water. And then here again, point the bottom of your phone up towards where that bird sound is coming from. And, you'll get a better recording. But yeah, that is a problem for sure.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Does Merlin offer only one identification for a bird? Or will it offer options?
Well, it knows, multiple sounds and calls for birds. So it's going to tell you what it thinks it is, right or wrong. But just remember that, it doesn't know, just you've been programmed to recognize different songs and different calls, all for the same bird. Doesn't mean it can't make a mistake, though.
Mm, great. Okay. So why would you recommend uploading parts of countries, lists from parts of countries, when you can just upload the entire country? Is that a matter of space on your phone, or options,
That's,
any options to consider?
yep, that's pretty much it. It's just a space option. If you have plenty of space on your phone, yeah, load the whole country. I love to have the whole country myself, and I've got extra room so I can do that. But if there's limited space on your phone, you can just, select a specific area, and you will save space.
Great. So this question, I'm so glad that this was asked, because it occurred to me early in your presentation. Can you import another life list to Merlin or eBird? So if I've been using eBird for a couple of years, but I've been birding for a lot longer. So can I take my printed life list and add it?
Oh, yes, you certainly can. So you can just manually enter your life list into ebird.org. And, there's a good help on that. And I think, Chuck and I went through that a little bit on that previous presentation we did back in August, I think it was, of 2020, on how to use eBird. And there is a submit feature up on the eBird where you can submit your previous sightings, and it will go, into eBird, and therefore will be part of your life list, and then can be downloaded, will automatically be downloaded to Merlin.
Right. Are you aware of whether Cornell offers a class for beginning use of Merlin?
I think there might be a class. I'll have to look that up and see if there was one. So yeah, there could be, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. And then last question in our list here is, why does Merlin call its identifications suggestions? Why doesn't it call them identifications?
Well,
Is it not
it's
sure?
not, it's, it's pretty darn good, but just as humans can make mistakes in the field with bird ID, Merlin can too. It takes all of these recordings that we've done and analyzes them, and puts them into the database of the sounds that it thinks that the bird is. But it can make mistakes, and does. I just heard about up in the mountains, white-crowned sparrows are chipping right now. And Merlin has been identifying those as a northern water thrush, or maybe a blue grosbeak. So, it's not perfect. It's going to get better all the time. It's phenomenal. And I've just had a wonderful time using it in the field, because it makes me more aware of birds that, I'm probably missing, because I just have not really registered, those sounds in the field. So I think you'll enjoy it, but you have to take it with a grain of salt.